He-Man is the one that was the first in my mind because it was big. But of course I had G.I. Joe, not to the degree you did. I had the whole Thundercats set, which was actually my brother's that was handed down to me.
Mm-hmm.
So all the Thundercats and whatever came with them. I had a absolute crap ton of Smurfs.
What? Because the thing, when I would go to your house, I think we were older when I started going to your house. I think that's what it was, because my theory was you didn't play with many toys. Because what I remember the first time I went to your house was posters of basketball players, Michael Jordan, Spud Webb, dunking in your bedroom. I don't remember any toys anywhere.
Well, by the time,
but that must have been later.
I mean, I definitely, I'm fairly confident that I stopped playing with them on a regular basis before you did. I mean, none of this made it to middle school. Like, not a chance.
And
sixth grade, definitely didn't make it to sixth grade. For me, this is like first grade through fourth grade, maybe into fifth grade. Also,
by the time you turn 8, typically you're getting out of like action figure play type thing, maybe 9 years old.
The other thing that I think is a little different, and this is evidenced by the way that you treated your WWF action figure set, is that when I had somebody over, I was like, that's not time to play with toys. Like I was like, oh, I've got somebody over, we're going to go outside.
Yeah.
We're gonna go outside, we're gonna get into something. These toys are for when it's raining and I have to be in my room.
Last resort.
The toys were not something I was super excited about them initially. I would set them up, but then within 7 days, I was missing pieces of it. It was kind of weird and kind of off. And I never like tried to like, did you create like stories with them? Because I would like play with them a little bit and then I would combine a bunch of them and then I would kind of lose interest and move on to something else.
Broom them into a box that you wouldn't open. Well, yeah, and knowing the you now as well as I do and applying that backwards, I would say you probably lost interest, whereas I would dig deep. I remember for G.I. Joe was the one, and I was telling Lando this too. I was like, it's army men, but they're like fully articulated and posable. And that's when I realized, I told him, I was like, I didn't so much as play with my G.I. Joe men as collect them. And then I read a lot about, like they had like dossiers and like on the back of the packaging, it would like describe all of their detailing. But I would collect them, and B, I'd set up I would pose them. They had a hole in their boot and then they had pegs on all their vehicles. And so you could stand them up and like put them in dynamic poses. And as I was telling Lando this, I realized, you know what? I didn't play with my toys. I created still life. Like that's what I did. I remember I got the Mobile Command Center, like the biggest thing that G.I. Joe had made. It opened up like a 3-tier tackle box and it was as huge as this table, at least in my memory. And I would take all of my G.I. Joe guys and I would position them all over it and pose them. And then once I got it exactly how I wanted it, I'd leave it. And when I came back to it, I would just look at it as if I were walking through a museum and someone had created a still life.
Yeah,
and that's what I did.
If I ever went to the trouble of setting it up, and again, I would put, it wasn't like Castle Grayskull just had He-Man. It was like, Castle Grayskull could have Smurfs in my world.
I think it's hilarious that you were big into Smurfs. Like, what do you mean? I don't even know what you mean.
They were little
figurines?
Non-articulating.
I know what Smurfs are.
No, I'm specifically describing them. They were about this tall. They were rubber.
They were 3 inches tall, 4 inches
They were rubber and they were not articulating. They were all stuck in a pose, kind of like the California Raisins.
Oh, I collected all those. From Hardee's.
But Smurfs had way more than the California Raisins.
Did you collect all of them?
I don't remember. But again, for me, it wasn't about collecting. It wasn't like, I've got to get the Papa Smurf because I don't have the full set. It was about putting them into a situation, and again, this is usually on a rainy day, getting it set up and then just destroying all of it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It was just like, okay, who's the, Lionor.
Lion-O, yeah.
Lionor. Lion-O's gonna come through and Thundercat on the Smurfs, whatever that involves. You know what I'm saying? And a Thundercat
Thundercat's a verb now.
can take out 12 Smurfs at a time.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, Lion-O has no problem with Smurfs.
Right. Just
And it was
they're
just
both good.
it
though,
was
right?
just a hodgepodge.
You didn't even stick to like good versus evil. You were like good decimates good.
No, in my world, Skeletor and He-Man could be buddies. They could team up. They could both ride Cringer at the same time. That was fun. Cringer didn't complain. Battle Cat, I mean.
Okay, yeah. Get it straight.
My room was way too messy to create any sort of like lasting scene or like set it up. And of course, my kids are exactly the same way. Like there's not, we'll get into what they have and what they have had, but it's not set up in a way. It's set up in a way to interact with violently and then destroy at some point and then have to be replaced.
Yeah, to me it was just about the scene, the perfect scene that you wouldn't touch. And if people came over, like my younger cousins, like Kurt, one of his first memories is coming over and getting very upset that I wouldn't let him touch anything in my room.
Yeah, it's not playing.
And like his mom, my Aunt Teasy was like, she thought I was she knew I was strange, but at that point she was like, that boy is strange. And I also
True.
think because I'm an only child and I was in my room and you know, it was my haven and I had to build these worlds that like then I would just admire and like perfect. You know, I think that's the operative word, right? I've got to perfect the collection, then I can perfect the scene and don't touch it. And this is where I'm God. I'm in control. And it felt really good to like have it all together. And I also didn't have, like you, an older brother that was like, well, I do this. And if you want to be cool and aspire to be older, then you might want to do that. So at first, maybe that's a little Thundercat action. When he's not looking, you're gonna steal it and decimate your Smurfs. But then later, it's like, hey man, I'm kind of done with toys. I'm more of like a cool sports dude. So why don't you come outside, or we're gonna play a game where we hide in the woods in the dark. Be like, count me out. The things that Cole would do with you, right?
We were definitely outside. If you could be outside, we were outside.
And it wasn't that I didn't go outside, but me going outside was an extension of becoming G.I. Joe. I don't know if you remember this, but I invented this elite group of kids in Harnett County called the Army Investigators. And like I had a trapper keeper that had like a dossier in it and like missions, and I drew maps of my neighborhood and I would go out, me and, I was the only member. But then you would come over and I would take you on these missions. And I would have, like Jimmy, my stepdad at the time, his gift to me would always be stuff from the Army surplus store, which was really cool if you think about it, because he took my love for G.I. Joe and he said, hey, let's bring this into the real world. Not with guns, but with like belts and binoculars.
Vests.
Like the binoculars, vests. Like the binoculars that are in our book that I still have at home in my bedroom now when I spy on my neighbors. He gave me those camouflage binoculars, and I would take them out into
and I wasn't a part of that, and then we did the same thing. So I think this is just, it shows you what the geography does. The fact that we lived like 2 miles apart was, before we were riding bikes across town to see each other.
Right.
So, because Jeremy Fisher, who lived on my street, and then my brother Cole and I were the Explorers. And we called ourselves the Explorers because we had duck boots that were said Explorers on them.
Okay.
And so that, you know how like behind my house, there was Bowie's Creek went behind my house and down into the woods, and how all those different parts of the creek were named different forts? Like Fort U and Fort Deadman, and then Fort Bowie's Creek.
No, what are you talking about?
You didn't know about this?
No.
Fort Silverstone?
You made up?
That's just how it goes now. That's just how we roll now. That's just how it goes now. That's just how we roll now. Lately I've been living my life. I've been losing my mind. I'll be gone in time. I'll be gone.
Look at Randy Orton slithering. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
ASMR, thanks for the follow, homie.
Like that, and I'm only now catching wind of it. And it's one of those interesting dramas where you have to kind of ask yourself, is there really something going on here, or is this just one of those situations where someone made a comment and a lot of people are blowing it up into something that it actually isn't? So I thought I would kind of look into this situation. I did a deep dive before recording this video to try and figure exactly what is going on with this drama. And, you know, I'm going to share my opinions with you guys on exactly what I think is going on here. Now, this whole drama or, you know, alleged beef between Rhett and Link and Steven Crowder, those are the parties involved in this situation. A lot of fans are outraged about some recent comments made on Each People's show and stuff like that. And so, you know, a lot of people are like really upset about these recent comments that are being made on these shows. And it all kind of started with this video by Rhett and Link on Good Mythical Morning. They did a video called Dad Meme Review Quarantine Episode, and they were basically just reviewing various memes. And one of the memes that came up are the infamous Steven Crowder Change My Mind meme. And there was a point when Stevie, who is apparently the producer of this show, from behind the camera, made a comment about Steven Crowder that got a lot of people wondering, you know, was that comment necessary to make? And what exactly is the reasoning behind making this comment? You know, is there some kind of beef behind the scenes with Steven Crowder or something like that? And anyway, I want to go ahead and I want to play the clip for you guys so you can see exactly what comment was made, and then we can kind of take it from there. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the clip.
All right, guys, it all comes down to this last meme. This is the Change My Mind meme, and that's Steven Crowder, or as I like to call him, Steven Piece of Crowder. He's a podcaster at TCU who sat outside with a sign that said, "Male privilege is a myth. Change my mind." And the meme is used to convey strong, hot takes on topics that are actually important or completely unimportant.
Okay.
Let's see a few examples. Corn dogs are just meat Twinkies. Change my mind.
Very important.
Okay, so there we have the clip. And as you can see, Stevie, the producer of the show, made this comment about Steven Crowder. And this got a lot of people thinking, why was this comment made? Is there some kind of ongoing beef that we're not aware of between Steven Crowder and Rhett and Link? Like, what exactly is going on here? And there is a lot of speculation as to why this beef may be taking place, or, you know, why Stevie would make such a comment about Steven Crowder. And a lot of people seem to think that it has something to do with this episode of Steven Crowder's show, Mass Monday. Mass Monday is essentially a show he does where, as a lot of people know, Steven Crowder and his cast of characters on his show, they're very much of the Christian belief. And they do this show called Mass Monday, where they basically look at trending topics and discuss them from a religious perspective. And on this particular episode, which aired a couple days before that episode of Good Mythical Morning, they came onto the topic of Rhett and Link being woke. And more specifically, what they were talking about is how Rhett and Link discussed the fact that they had, you know, lost their faith. They used to be religious people, and they're no longer religious people anymore. And so they use that trending topic as kind of like a jumping off point to discuss from a religious perspective why people do separate with their faith and go on to be atheists, or, you know, things of that nature. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play a brief clip of this video for you guys, so you guys can kind of see, you know, what the discussion was about. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at that.
But this week, actually, we do want to talk about something because it's been making the rounds on YouTube throughout the whole sort of YouTube blogosphere. And you brought this to my attention, Audio Wade.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said, hey, I would like to maybe do a podcast yourself on Explain.
Yeah, so the Rhett and Link, famous on YouTube. I think they have like 16 million subscribers.
Right.
Recently came out, did a couple of videos about their spiritual deconstruction, is the word that
That's the new term
they've used. Yes,
it's the woke term.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
So cool.
So yeah, they did a couple of episodes on that, each one about an hour and 45 minutes, just going through their stories of basically how they lost their faith.
Right.
And they came from very different points of view on that, but yeah, that's and I thought that warranted at least a response.
Well, I think it warranted a response because, and I want to be really clear, as a Christian, obviously we want to speak to these people, everyone who's in this boat, out of love, compassion, we care, of course.
Yeah.
And Christians, we all believe that our worldview is correct, and namely because we also want what's best for people. And obviously creating distance between yourself and God, we don't view as being best for you.
No, he doesn't have the
your life.
coronavirus. He does not need the social distancing.
Now, that being said, I also think, based on what we've, and we'll get to some clips here, based on what we've been watching, that sometimes these people also need to be intellectually challenged, not emotionally coddled. So I think that's pretty important here.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of questions that were sort of asked that weren't really answered. And this is a big thing that you see, the term deconstruction. That's sort of the terminology that's used a lot now from these really sort of the like Freedom From Religion Foundation. I don't know if they use it exactly, but a lot of these places.
Right.
So just someone leaving the faith.
Yeah.
So let's set up the context before we get into some of these arguments. And I want to, by the way, hear from everyone out there, since this isn't only Mug Club right now. We're doing a live chat. We've been doing live chats all week. But in the comments section, let us know if you've ever had a crisis of faith, or how you maintain faith, or what your worldview is as a Christian. Because sometimes sometimes I just go, oh, that's a different perspective, and then sometimes it dumbfounds me. Or sometimes,
Right.
well, I'm a Christian, but I sacrifice goats in the Temple of the Dead. I'm like, whoa, it's a little strange. Well, okay.
That's a bit of a niche.
They're just Swedish. It's confusing.
Swedish.
It's a very weird place.
Do they do anything?
It's a very, very
Swedes?
weird place. So before we continue, and yeah, this might be a little bit, I don't want to say scholarly. There'll still be dick jokes, but let's go for context to Rhett and Link explaining it off the bat why they left the Christian faith.
Okay, so there you can see the clip there. And as I described before, this show Mass Monday that Crowder does is a religious discussion on religion and how it pertains to trending topics. And the whole point of the conversation was to basically discuss how, use a trending topic, how Rhett and Link described that they had lost their faith over time. And from the religious perspective, trying to discuss and understand why these sort of things happen. And, it wasn't meant to take digs at Rhett and Link or anything like that. They obviously told some jokes and stuff along the way, but it wasn't meant to be that kind of discussion where they're basically poking fun at them or anything like that, or, any disrespect or anything. It was purely, this is a trending topic that, we want to discuss from a religious perspective. And so a lot of people seem to think that, maybe Rhett and Link or Rhett and Link's producer saw this conversation and they saw it as like a personal attack, and they were, trying to take digs at them for that situation. And I have my thoughts on why this really happened and whatnot, and I'll share them with you a little bit later. But obviously Steven Crowder caught wind of this comment that was made on Good Mythical Morning, and he decided to respond to it in another video, which I'm going to show you guys here right now. The video is titled Rhett and Link Are Everything Wrong with YouTube, Mass Monday, Louder with Crowder. And before I get into my discussion of this episode here, I thought I'd play a little brief clip for you guys so you guys can kind of see a little bit of his response here. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the clip.
This is continuing. Audio Aid is here. Gerald A. Quarter Black Garrett. Continuing on the sort of Rhett and Link saga.
Right.
Received quite a bit of response letters / comments. No one actually writes physical letters. But they do, but it's mainly just anthrax.
Yeah, it's like
Every time I get a physical letter, I open it and I just aim it in the general direction of Brendan and go, like fairy dust.
You just don't appreciate a good GIF.
More so that I don't like being surprised.
It's face powder. It's just face powder.
We're going to get into Rhett and Link a little bit, and I want to be clear. Very much appreciate Rhett and Link, what they do. I can appreciate their position that they're stepping out. I do think it takes some courage to talk about their sort of abandoning of faith and their crisis of faith. Doing my best to keep this really as brand friendly as possible, which brings me to the question. Let me ask you, is brand friendly or even sort of mainstream audience friendly the idea of that, something that Christians should value at all? Is there a biblical prescription as it applies to living your life so that others around you like you? Let me know what you think. Popularity, making sure that you're polite, that people like you because you're nice. Is that something that is a value inherent to the Christian faith? And if so, where does it sort of take precedence over other values? And this, of course, is, we thought it was over after the last Mass Monday. And then Rhett and Link's angry, I believe, lesbian producer.
It's very loud.
Alleged.
I don't know. It's not relevant other than the fact that that's probably a huge portion of why she's angry at me.
Well, specifically,
Yes, had this to say.
This is the Change My Mind meme, and that's Steven Crowder, or as I like to call him, Steven Piece of Shit. Crowder. He's a podcaster at TCU who sat outside with a sign that said, "Male privilege is a myth. Change my mind." And the meme is used to convey strong, hot takes on topics that are actually important or completely unimportant.
Okay.
Let's see a few examples.
And I do appreciate Rhett and Link avoiding it. You know, Link with the chipmunk face. Like, I'm uncomfortable, and then Rhett with the laugh. Like, is it okay for me to laugh at it? I'm not going to be demonetized. Don't worry, you won't. Your views are safe.
Also known as the brain. We are probably swimming in that bucket. I think I'll pass.
I know that this may seem self-important to some, but there have been enough myths out there, and people have asked me repeatedly. I'll get Twitter at messages. I'll get emails saying, "Is this true?" So we wanted to take this opportunity to, and it's not really just about me, but by proxy, people who work on this show. So here are the top 5 myths that some of you may believe about me, which aren't true. Myth number 1, that I am a Nazi. 2, that I'm Jewish. Now, for those of you in the comment section, I'm an evolution denier / flat earther. You can see these again in the comment section. People have written about it. And this one, that. So, more specifically, and in story about me with Kwanzaa, I did the voice of the Brandon Arthur.
He's gonna blow up. Everybody get. Oh my god, he actually did. Yeah. Holy shit.
Who the fuck did that? Who's that banging ass, buddy? Piece of shit coming to shit twinkle toe fried chicken and bigger. Cocksucker down here.
Oh my god.
Story about me. Story about me. Which brings us to kind of a point that I wanted to talk about. This is sort of a chant that we hear quite a bit from, sort of a mantra. And you were talking about this audio, Wade, so feel free to chime in at any point. Rhett and Link, they continually talk, and it seems to be a value that is very important to them personally, as well as professionally. And that's the idea of being popular, being brand friendly. Here you go.
All right, so there we have that clip there, and they basically address head-on this whole situation with the producer, Stevie, making this comment about them on their show. And essentially, he kind of used that as a jumping-off point for a discussion about religion and brand friendliness. I gotta be honest, I took a look at that entire video. I watched the whole thing through and listened to the discussion. I don't get the vibe that Steven Crowder has any...
Hey, welcome back. You have very, you know, I can't remember exactly how many new formats we're trying to do per month now, but
3 or 4.
it's going to be a handful of episodes. That's what, if I watch something, that's what I'm going to watch. Now I am watching, we're both actually watching the edits and the final product of the vlogs, just because which is, that's been an interesting thing.
To go to,
let me just tell you,
It's a lot of convincing, right?
the people who make the
lot of
decisions,
ass
it's also political, right? But the people who make the decisions about the Emmys, apparently there are these like groups of people who have
the linkness, their hot take on what we shared was
things about which I don't think I can be certain about.
Well, I feel like
You know?
part of the reason maybe people had such a
Well, I think when I sort of told my story, I was telling it in a way.
People who came out of a sexual closet.
Sure.
Because it was.
What was kind of, how long did you, if you're comfortable talking about it, how long did you kind of have to think about it? And what was like the moment where you were like, okay, this is it?
I knew that it was going to be a very, very sensitive subject, but I didn't wait too long. I mean, I have a friend who basically completely deconstructed before he ever let his wife know anything because he was so frightened at what it might do, which I totally get that and relate to that. But for me, it was like, I'm going to bring something up, which is something that I actually was thinking about 6 months ago. I'm actually already in a different place now, but maybe I should, before I get too far along in this process, maybe I should just say, what do you think about this? And virtually every time that I would ask a difficult question, which, she's very intelligent and intelligent enough to know, oh, I see where this is going. And so basically it would always result in her like kind of breaking down.
Okay.
And crying. But she wasn't mad. And she didn't judge me. And she might push back a little bit, but we would just kind of continue to talk about things. And then after a while, I think she would kind of be like, okay, I'm kind of I'm in the same place on this particular thing. And it kind of just slowly unfolded. And then after a while, she was just, at that point, once she had sort of like lost the fear of being introspective about her faith in the way that I was, she took her own path and kind of had her own process.
Because I was going to say, like, I can't imagine how scary that would be. Not only because there are the stories of it not panning out or working out, but I've had to kind of calm myself down because I think after listening to both of your podcasts talking about everything you went through and then seeing some of the reactions in general, very positive, but I imagine the ones that stand out are people saying things like disappointed or those things that you pre-plan for and then you see it and it sucks. Like it's not to minimize anything else. I'm sure it's like the closest thing like a straight white guy can feel towards like a coming out of some sort, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely started to realize I was able to empathize with, people who came out of a sexual closet.
Sure.
Because it was a religious closet, and it was, okay, we're breaking this news. This has been something that's been a part of who I am for years, but I've resisted the urge to talk about it, or I haven't. There's never seems to be the right time to talk about it. And again, it's different in that it wasn't. It was. I don't know how different it was, but it was a process, over many years, and it wasn't just me realizing, oh, I'm gay. This is a part of who I am. It's more of my worldview is morphing. It's evolving. It's it is different. But at the moment that you do decide to share it, and you're revealing a lot, I'm like, okay, now everyone has to have their take on it, and even the people who they think they're being helpful or caring, but they just don't see how there's something baked into their response that is even hurtful. I started to think about people's coming out stories and starting to relate at least a little bit. And I mean, it's just one of the many positive ripple effects of sharing our stories was just being able to empathize more with other people, even if it's a totally different story about something totally different, to say, okay, you especially on the internet, you put yourself out there, and it's like, I didn't know it was going to feel like that.
Are you talking about specifically with family, or your wife and your family and friends, or
no?
After this video,
I'm talking about I'm talking about the public reaction. I mean, with Christy and with the kids, it was something that we were having ongoing conversations over the past 10 years, and so it was fans, strangers, people who care about the issues but don't know us and have never consumed any of our content, now coming out of their woodwork to give their hot take on what we shared, was something that I guess we anticipated that happening, but I don't know how much you can really prepare for it.
Yeah, I tried to. Well, I think when I sort of told my story, I was telling it in a way that I would have wanted to have heard it 10 years ago as myself, right? Like something that would have made sense to me 10 years ago. And so I tried to, because we being in that community, we've had friends deconstruct, and we actually talk a little bit about this on our podcast with one of our good friends, who he basically sort of straying from a very traditional faith, and we tried to sort of get to the bottom of it and figure out, well, what did he do wrong? Not does he have any good points. It was more like, what's wrong with him and his process and his motivations that led him to this place. And because I knew that was what was going to happen with us, I was very careful to say some things that I knew would be common accusations, right? I was very clear to say that, okay, I know what people are going to think. They're going to think that you guys moved to Los Angeles and you lost your faith. Big surprise. Happens all the time. Just tried to be very clear about the fact that this process had started and almost completely finished when I was in North Carolina. Still completely embedded in a Christian community. Still leading a Bible study at my church. You know what I'm saying? And still the deconstruction had basically happened. So kind of made that clear. But that it doesn't really matter because we're still getting lots of people saying that. And so you kind of just like, I think a lot of the comments, and I remember feeling this way, or kind of now looking back in retrospect to the way that we treated people who sort of deconstructed or left the faith. What we had to say to them was a lot more about our own fear and our own insecurity. In fact, I haven't even told you this story, but we've got a good friend who had sort of a public deconstruction, and somebody wrote one of these sort of like Christian hit pieces on him to kind of basically try to find where he went wrong and what was wrong with his motivations and his process and his heart that led him to this place. And then after the article came out, he got a direct message from the dude who wrote the article, who was basically like, hey man, I'm actually a big fan of yours and I don't believe this anymore either.
What? But wow. he wrote the hit piece?
Yes. And so it's and you know what? It's not surprising at all. It's not surprising at all because in so many of the critical, sort of dismissive and judgmental responses that I see, I can actually see my former self in those, struggling and trying to talk to myself to try to justify where I'm at. And I think that my wife made a really good point when we were talking about this. She was like, if something is true, does it really need to be defended with a passion and with an intensity? Do you need to make sure, we got to teach our kids to be ready for all this, this, and this, and this. We got to prepare everybody. it's like if something is true, it should be able to withstand, investigation and inquiry, And I think that I think a lot of people are just kind of speaking out of their own fears and insecurities, but I totally get it because that's
where we were.
That's where we were, and that's where I continue to be as a human, right? I want to justify myself now and where I'm at now. I want to defend the things that I think now, and a lot of that comes from my own fears and insecurities. You don't get rid of that.
But the stakes associated with what we believe now is not the same as what it was then. If the stakes are eternal salvation or damnation, and then you think about, okay, we got to protect our kids, and I get that because we were in that place, and there is a level of intensity that I aspire to shed now.
Well, I don't have the ability to be that intense about what I believe now, because if you're like, I'm not going to die on the hill because I'm no longer certain about things about which I don't think I can be certain about.
Well, I feel like part of the reason maybe people had such a, in addition to obviously like the kids watch you angle, right? That I saw that getting thrown around. Was it's such a core thing for them, and you're such reasonable guys. I went through one of the pieces that was kind of like going after you, and I use that kind of loosely, but it was almost like the point of the article was we need to get better at debating these points, and it was right. So weird.
Rhett and Link are too far gone, but
it was very political, and it was so strange to me.
Yeah, and we understand that because we were intimately involved in that side of it, and I think we have regrets associated with that, but it still hurts when you share, this is who I am, and then the response is, this is where you're wrong, and I think that's where I start to relate to people who make the brave move to come out of the closet, is that they're saying, this is who I am, and they do get the response a lot that's like, this is a choice you made, or this is and I feel for those people more than ever now. And so that's what I was trying to say earlier. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I also, because I think that's the emotional component. I shared who I was, but then now I'm dealing with the criticism of, well, you just did it wrong. If you would have understood or lived certain things, or if you didn't have a certain neurosis, like if you didn't have the anxiety you have, or this is something you put on yourself, and that's not what God wants for you.
Or you don't understand grace, or whatever.
You don't understand grace. I think, and I think those things are true to a certain extent. That this is part of who I am, but it just hurts when you're sharing who you are, and then people pick it apart like it's separate from you.
When you said a moment ago there were regrets with something, what were you saying?
What did I say? Of being judgmental, of being.
You mean
of
you
being,
in the past?
Yeah, of being. I think being on the receiving end. I think we were on the giving end for a long time of just being able to put people in a box to apply label to
and specifically
to render judgment.
When you and listen, everybody has their own biases, and everyone basically thinks that they're right. Otherwise, I mean, hopefully everyone is sort of as close to the truth that they think they are. But there's this interesting thing that happens when you subscribe to a worldview, which says that you have the truth, like you have the preeminent truth that comes from the creator of the universe, and you have a special relationship with the creator of the universe, and a lot of other people don't. Even if you're a loving person, because there's plenty of people who are incredibly loving who are in the Christian community, but if you subscribe to that worldview, you can't help but delegitimize so many other experiences that people have. Like, you can't help but delegitimize. If you're the kind of Christian who subscribes to the idea that the Bible clearly teaches that it's wrong and sinful to be gay, well, you can't believe that the love between two men or two women is as legitimate as the love that you have, right? You can say things like love the sinner, hate the sin, which is really one of the most backhanded. It's just so insulting when you really think about it. But you're basically delegitimizing people's humanity. And I think that it's a pattern. It's a really interesting thing because, one of the things that Link talked about in his story was how specifically his view on LGBTQ issues was something that kind of like pushed him forward in his decision. And a lot of people criticized him for that in some of these articles that are being written, saying things like, well, it's clear that it wasn't really intellectual. It was mostly because he has an emotional attachment to this idea that he doesn't want to judge gay people. And I'm like, well, isn't that a good motivation? The intellectual and emotional, you can try to parse those things, but I find it really interesting that some people are making that argument. And one thing I saw said it's too late for Rhett and Link, mostly because of this LGBT thing. Once they've gone there, wow, it's too late for them. And I'm like, can't you see that you guys have lost this argument? History is going to leave you behind. You can hold out, you can get into your little crevice and hold out as long as you want to. But in the same way that we had to argue about, we had to convince the church that slavery was wrong. We had to convince the church that interracial marriage was okay. Now we're having to convince the church that it's okay to be gay. And they're going to.
You don't mean we. I don't think meaning me and you.
I'm saying
yes. I get you.
The culture.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's. I don't know. I get fired up. I get fired up talking about it. And and I get more fired up here than I would on our podcast because I'm trying to keep our podcast a little even more friendly and inviting place. But it's these are the things that I've been thinking since the all the hit pieces have come out.
When you showed the picture of us
watch out,
at the YouTube Live event, the first time we all got together, I was, I said we felt like outsiders because we weren't connecting with the community in the way that a lot of creators were. I also felt, I think we sensed that we were misfits because we were so fundamental. And I think that if you had an interaction with us, and you know what, maybe you remember, but I had this thought that like people can tell that we're different, and we would usually say that in a good way. It's like people can tell that we're different, and that's us being a witness for us having a relationship with Jesus, okay? But it was also this, people can tell that we're different because we're uptight. I think we're judgmental, and once we started, we were working out of this little basement studio and just putting stuff on the internet, and once we started to our world got bigger when we started to meet other creators. I remember when we met Michael Buckley the first time, he gave me a hug. And I remember thinking, this is the first openly gay person I've ever hugged. Oh, and wow. I don't know I know what I'm supposed to believe about this guy that I'm hugging, and it was a crisis moment for me because I was like, this doesn't feel right. For me, and let me clarify, it didn't feel right for me to render judgment of him because what I wanted to do was hug him back and actually mean it. But there was, I had been, the belief that I was ingrained with didn't allow me to sincerely hug the guy. And it was upsetting.
Yeah, that must have been really hard.
And I would hate to think that he felt that he felt the judgment that, I think that I was supposed to render. And again, as I'm sharing this story, I started to become super aware of anyone listening who might be saying, you know what, I have a relationship with God. It's different than what you said. I never believe those things. I know there are people who believe. There are Christians who believe. Also, they're all on the spectrum, right? They could be gay affirming. So we're not saying that just because you're a Christian that you can't
not a broad
actually
brush.
love. Yeah. But I'm speaking for me.
We're kind of talking about the world that we came from, the specific flavor of Christianity. Yeah.
But it was a powerful moment, and I hope he hears this because I've never told him that, like, that moment of me hugging him was it was a big milestone in me coming to grips with this. And I think being involved in YouTube and becoming more part of the community and my world expanding, people think that it's that, oh, they moved to LA and they got liberal. They gave up their faith. I mean, well, you could also blame it on YouTube because many years before, it's like, I mean, in a very good way, it expanded. The people in this, we didn't rub shoulders with anybody like in that before that picture. We were in our own little microcosm.
Yeah, it sounds like,
and we
like
felt like we had it all figured out. And I took extreme comfort, and I think with the way that I worked, I really needed the comfort of knowing that, okay, I'm right. I'm safe because I'm right.
It tethered you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made it scary to start to say, okay, I'm going to let go of this. But it was, so I understand why I was there, but I'm also grateful that I'm where I'm at now. And people are coming out of the woodwork that knew us before, and it's news to them. So it's, are you okay? Christy, are you okay? Are the kids okay? It's like, because, their viewpoint is that we've lost something. We've lost a specific type of faith, okay? A specific strain of faith. But my response is, yeah, we're very much okay. This didn't happen yesterday. It happened over a long period of time. We didn't share it on the heels of coming to grips with it, one. But two, I've gained a lot, I've gained the ability to love myself and other people a lot more than I ever have. And that's something I'm grateful for.
I mean, just hearing your story, it sounds like, I feel like most everyone, including myself, we need to expose ourselves to those new, initially uncomfortable things so we can have that crisis of what's just, of what's right. Because I guess, going into that situation, the way that you saw him living his life, which I don't know if at that point you were of the mindset of people were born that way or people were choosing that way. Obviously, that would change where your head's at, but it seems, God, I can't even imagine.
I think we were super conflicted.
Yeah.
Super conflicted.
Because it makes me feel good that
because we felt like, and
on.
listen, I think that we're speaking on behalf of a lot of Christians right now, right? So, again, there are certain denominations that have basically just said, okay, we're gay affirming, and we have an explanation for the parts of the Bible that seem to suggest that being gay is wrong, right? Or they have just a different view of the Bible that allows them to do that. But especially amongst, millennials and younger, even if they subscribe to the idea that the Bible is true, that this is God's word, and that regardless of culture and regardless of what's happening in the world, of course there's going to be things that are uncomfortable, but you've got to just trust that this is what God's plan is, even if it's difficult, right? And I think that there's a lot of people who are like, but I love these people, and I think that they kind of rest in this place that we were talking about before, which is this is where I was when we met Michael Buckley, 12 years ago or however many, 13 years ago. I was like, I love this guy. I actually don't have there's no personal revulsion or problem with his lifestyle, but I feel like I'm supposed to think that it's ultimately wrong because I subscribe to this set of truths, and I'm just going to have to live in that tension. But I think the thing that we're finding out right now, and it's one of the key reasons that so many people are leaving the church, is that that tension can only lead to the tension being broken. You know, and I think the way it's going to be broken is that, in just like I said earlier, in many different issues that the church has held out on, even the most conservative denominations 100 years from now, no one except these like a fringe cult is going to be anti-LGBT in 100 years. It's just, if you just look at history and the way things progress culturally, eventually the church says, okay, we'll incorporate that too, because if we don't, we're going to get down. But I think because the church is being really slow to do that, and it's kind of causing an existential crisis and a crisis of just the way that they see the Bible, the young people are just saying, I'm out. I'm not going to be a part of this.
I mean, it's easy to stay entrenched and be comfortable in your belief when you're when you're not gay, or when your kids aren't gay, or when your friends aren't gay. But when that changes, you know, then you've got to grapple with that. And I feel for people in certain churches, in certain belief systems. Again, it's not all of them, that have it much more difficult than we had, because they have a kid who's not straight.
Yeah.
Or they have friends or neighbors who aren't straight. And it's like, oh, they you know, or they are not straight, and they have to figure out how to navigate that. I mean, it has to be for many people, and we've heard enough of the stories, right, to know that it's a nightmare. It's much more of a nightmare than what we experienced, which was extreme privilege.
Yeah. We benefited. This is one of the things we talked about, is we just benefited from the system. I mean, you know, look at the leadership in the evangelical church, and it's very male, very white, and very straight. And there's a reason for that. There's a lot of deeply seated reasons for that. But we just benefited from that system that basically said, sure, you guys can go and do whatever you want to. You can, within this world of Campus Crusade, yeah, you guys can go and have this ministry of comedy, you know, and I don't think, you know, I obviously, if we were openly gay, we would have, that would have never happened.
Wait,
the
so
openly gay Christian duo.
Wait, is that a thing? Wait, no, not that.
That's not a thing.
Yeah.
No, but are you did you first start dabbling because of that?
Oh, the comedy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've done like a 4-part series. You listen to our individual stories. Before
I didn't hear
that,
the first two.
The first two were like what we call the lost years, which is the real story on how we went from being engineers to YouTubers, which if you look in any article that was written in the past 15 years, it'll just be like they quit their engineering jobs and became YouTubers. And the fact is, as we explain on Ear Biscuits, is you quit being an engineer, I got fired from my job, and then we went into ministry with the campus ministry that we had been involved with at NC State, but we did our own we carved out our own little thing there that was essentially like training students how to talk to other students about Jesus, but using comedy to do that. It was very cool, Phil. And then a lot of those initial videos that we put on YouTube were videos that we made in that context. And we never made any videos that were overtly religious or spiritual. We did funny things, and then we kind of said things that made connections to them. So we could kind of take all those videos and just put them on the internet, and people would be like, oh, these are just funny, very clean videos. Yeah. So that's the real story.
Wow. I didn't. I love like how intertwined, because everything for you guys is intertwined. One, I didn't know you were both engineers. Two, I knew that you knew each other when you were younger. I will say one of my favorite stories from the two podcasts, or the last two podcasts, was you talking about the first time you drank and the guilt associated with that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't have religion in my life at that time. I thought I was just straight edge, and so I understand that first drink guilt.
Yeah.
And I was just, but after the fact, when you told Brett, when he, so you kicked him out of the car. Did I understand that proper? And then did you drive home and then walk back from there, or you were just further down the road?
I kicked him out of the car.
Because you're so
all the
disappointed.
while knowing that I was going to drive over the hill, park the car, and then walk back to meet him in like a Stand By Me movie moment.
And I hadn't seen Stand By Me, so I just thought this was a completely original idea. Did that happen in Stand By Me?
No, but it's got that romantic quality to it.
Yeah, it's got a, let's just say cinematic.
It's interesting because I think this is one of the main reasons we got involved in entertainment, even if it is primarily eating animal testicles at this point, although we're trying to do other things. We always had this sort of romantic, cinematic view of the lives that we were living, even as we were living them. We like ritualized things and ceremonialized things, and a lot of this kind of went into the novel The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek in the way that the characters Rex and Leaf sort of, have this ritual and ceremony that they do where they like sit on the big rock and the little rock and talk to each other, and they go to the big tree that they've named. All this is like from our childhood and our friendship growing up.
Yeah.
But I think that
the fact that we made a blood oath.
Yeah.
Where we said we were gonna like create something big together.
Everything was dramatic. And so
Everything
I was trying,
dramatic.
like Link had done something that I thought was wrong. And I was like, I need this to be something he never forgets. And so I was like, I'm going to kick his ass out of the car, and then I'm going to park, and then I'm going to walk back over and say nothing, and we're going to walk back to the car. And you never forgot it. So it worked.
And within the church, there was, of course, there was a lot of ritual. There was, even in like a non-denominational church, there was still like that youth group campy kind of, we're going to do things like, we're going to have ceremonies where we can remember things. Like I'm going to write down all the things that I'm struggling with on a sheet of paper. And then when the music plays at the end of this gathering, I'm going to go up and I'm going to nail that note to a cross. It's like, okay, this is symbolic and this is meaningful.
There was a lot of things like that.
So,
do you remember signing the Millennial Pledge?
Millennial Pledge. That was... I don't remember. Yeah, but I don't remember.
Is that like an abstinence pledge? Or?
Well, no, because that was True Love Waits. And you got... And we didn't... somehow we missed the True Love Waits movement. We participated in it.
My True Love did wait.
We waited, but we didn't have the ring. You got like a True Love Waits ring, like a purity ring, basically. But which is like basically like a chastity belt. But the Millennial Pledge was I believe it was 1999, because I remember we were at Christmas conference, which I was emceeing at the time. I think it was the first one I ever emceed before we started doing it together.
Oh, I remember this.
We had to stop early because of Y2K, because everybody thought the world was going to end because of Y2K. So
that wasn't a religious belief. That was like a technological belief.
They were like, we can't be here, have all these college students at this hotel.
Because the banks may go down.
Yeah, the stoplights might not work. So we all went home on New Year's Eve. But the night before that, we signed the Millennial Pledge, which I think it was like
it was
a promise to give a year of your life to Christian service.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a half
missionary.
Mormon mission.
Don't
promise.
give 2 years, give 1 year. Give the Mormons 2 years.
And that time in your life, that's the time where the college years, we were had so much energy to devote to the highest cause that we could latch onto.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so exciting and it was so meaningful. And it's no coincidence. That's when the Mormons send out their missionaries 2 by 2, right? Because there's at that time in your life, you don't have all the you don't have all
Baggage.
the all the strings attached, and
You got nothing but pure, unadulterated passion.
Yeah.
Right when you get out of college, man.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
The Mormons got that figured out. They institutionalized that.
Yeah.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. This is just a little small break to thank a sponsor of today's episode of A Conversation With, Drop. And if you didn't know, Drop is the easiest to use reward app that earns you points for the shopping you're already doing. With over 300 of your favorite brands like Apple, Instacart, eBay, even Uber and Lyft. You securely link your debit or credit cards to the app to earn points that turn into free gift cards redeemable at places like Starbucks, Amazon, Nike, and more. And you can really maximize your points by shopping directly through the Drop app. You just find the store, tap the offer, tap shop now, and check out as normal. And Drop will automatically add points into your account once your transaction clears. I've been a Drop member for 2 years, and the proof is in the numbers. I've earned over 230,000 points just from SeatGeek and Apple. And as far as points go, you beautiful bastards have earned over 19 million points on Drop. And on top of all of that, 100 of you beautiful bastards will be chosen easier for you, the podcast. I guess kind of the last thing I'll talk about or ask you regarding this is, do you feel like it was easier for you to kind of leave your previous thinking once you had kids? And the reason I ask that is, once again, I haven't been religious since I was like 10. I've gone back and forth, but I know like one of the positives I can see, and there are a number of like community and stuff like that, is that there's something bigger than you. And I think as we get older, we can have something bigger as we build a company, and there's the family there, or we can have kids, and all of a sudden, like, even though I told myself after I had my first son that wouldn't take over my mind, it definitely did. It changed the way that I was thinking, and everything became like a bigger, longer thought. Was that, do you feel like maybe part of that played in, or is that completely off base?
I think that the fact that we had kids and going through this spiritual deconstruction made it much scarier. And because we were raised and we were so devout and so devoted to not only God, but the Bible, and to the particular teaching from the church we grew up in and the churches that we attended through those years. I mean, we had this highest calling and like this big picture sense, and like all of our decisions were extremely weighty our entire lives. That, when I don't think I experienced to the degree that I hear other people, and maybe the way you describe it, as when I had my first child, it didn't blow me away, because that wasn't as it just wasn't a turning point, because it was
part of the script.
It was part of the script. So it was pretty terrifying once we each individually started to realize, again, in our own processes, that, okay, my beliefs are changing, and this is calling into question, like, well, what does this mean for my kids? Because there was a lot of comfort in, I don't have all the answers, but I feel like I have a lot of answers. And as a parent, that's one of the things you want to give your kids the most, is you want to give them protection, you want to give them love, and I think you want to give them answers, because it feels like the other two things.
Well, that's why religion has been so successful, right? It works. It gives you a sense of purpose. It does give you something bigger than yourself. It gives you sort of a play-by-play or manual, a rule book of how to be a dad and how to be a father, what to teach your kids. And so I think that, you're sort of in this, whatever it is that we are right now. I call myself a hopeful agnostic right now, but I don't have the structure or the community or the singular sort of well-defined purpose that I did. And that's a problem. I think one of the reasons that I don't know exactly what I think about God, but I know for a fact that, like, when you use the example of, we've got this thing that we're trying to build together in mythical entertainment or whatever, but I already know that regardless of how successful and how well this all goes, that I'm not going to find any real, pure, ultimate joy and satisfaction in just being successful, right? It's like, I know that seeking things for myself is ultimately gonna, I need something bigger than myself and just bigger than what we're doing. But I think that trying to figure out, so I feel like a lot of those answers get manufactured because it's like, well, we got to have something. I mean, I think a really simplistic sort of model of this is Ricky Gervais' movie, The Invention of Lying, right? Where once he sort of starts saying some things about what happens after you die, everyone is clamoring to hear him say more, because up until that point, no one thought anything happened. And so people are so desperate for those answers. I don't think we should stop seeking those answers. I think we should just be honest about whether or not that we can know some of those answers. So I think this is a cultural problem that we've got to figure out. Like, the world has got to figure this out, right? Because I don't think that the old way of thinking is going to survive, but I don't think it can be replaced with just a strictly, my guess is that it just can't be replaced with a strictly naturalistic view of the world in which it's all chaos and it's all purposeless and we're just an accident. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that humanity can bear that, so.
Well, because it feels like, I imagine for me, it's always, there's so much injustice that like chaos has been like the only reasonable explanation in my head. Because otherwise, what would I praise that enabled it? You know what I mean?
I completely get that. Okay. And I think for me, I'm not talking so much about, I don't even think that I don't think I'm ever going to figure that out. But I think that when you talk about justice, and I think about my kids, it's like getting them to understand that, you're going to live a much more fulfilled life if you devote it ultimately to other people, right? And I think that even into doing the things that we're doing with trying to build this media empire or whatever it is we're trying to do, the moment it becomes just about us and what we can do and the legacy that we can leave behind personally, I think it becomes pretty empty. But I think the moment that you say, oh, but how can this sounds like a cliche, make the world a better place? How can this help people? How can this bring the most good in the most people's lives? That's something that I can actually get excited about long-term, getting up and doing every single day. So I think it's just trying to find a way to get our kids to connect with what does bringing more justice in the world look like, and how can I make my life be centered on that,
and also to really seek to know themselves, understand themselves, and love themselves, and aspire to, as we talked about earlier, be the best version of yourself that you can be, and do that without imposing a lot of guilt that I realized looking back. There was a lot of shame and guilt associated with my internal dialogue that I had never shared with anybody. And I want to give my kids the gift of freedom to be honest with themselves and accept themselves in a way that I don't think I was able to do at their age.
Do you feel like, actually, I know that I said I was going to go off, but I'm kind of just trying to read both of you. Do you feel like this has hit you guys at different levels as far as the reaction? Like,
I think it's hit us in different ways for sure.
Because once again, this is just based off of how I'm feeling it. You seem a little, not aggro. Aggro is not the right word, but you're like ready for it. And I feel like you are like hurt from it is the vibe that I'm getting from you. Or am I wrong?
I mean, and our stories are very different, right? And I think that they are very intertwined, and it's not to say that it's not that my story is just an emotional process and Rhett's is just an intellectual process, but I mean I think those are the differences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my tendency is to want to defend and explain myself, and a lot of times I realize that that's not always motivated by a true interest in the truth. It's just kind of motivated by my ego and wanting to be right. And that's why we've decided to not really make Ear Biscuits about like following up and answering questions in a way that's like, let me tell you why I was right, or let me tell you what my process really was so you can quit misrepresenting it.
I imagine it's also hard on a topic like this because, to steal a phrase from Dr. Mike, anyone that's so certain, right, is a IKA expert and I know all expert.
Yeah.
And for something so unknowable, I imagine that's just a frustration point.
Yeah. So so for me, but that's not Link's personality. It's not to like enter into a debate.
Sure.
Right.
So I think that's why we're reacting in different ways. But the interesting
I would never
thing is,
make a show like your show. Like I would always
The
watch
new
your
show or this one?
No, you're
the PDS. Sure. Yeah.
where you confidently assert your opinion. No, you're
the PD
like your show. Like I would always watch
new
your
show. Or this one?
No, you're
the PDS. Sure. Yeah.
where you confidently assert your opinion on so many things.
I'm so hot and cold on that, but yeah.
But like,
but I would.
He definitely would. Like that is not within me. So I don't think it's that I'm just hurt. I think I'm processing my emotions, and that's part of it. But it's not. It's not just that. I'm also.
But
I'm also filled with a lot
you're
of
very like
joy associated with what's
whenever
happened
you get
too.
into something that is like
Yeah.
whenever you kind of get into a gray area that you know is polarizing, you're handle that very well. You're very careful about it.
It could be this, it could be that. So I mean, even that's been a little bit of an evolution, just because 2-3 years ago I was definitely in the pursuit of being fair. I was making lots of false equivalencies, and so like that's been something that I've been having to adjust.
It's tough to figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out.
To find the balance.
But one, thank you for like openly talking about this really sensitive thing. And then two, to go back to where I had planned, and then we kind of went off onto this regarding the company, right, and everything that you've been doing. One, I keep saying 1 and 2. In one of the last podcasts, you kind of brushed over it, but did you say you're trying to turn the book into a TV show?
Yeah. Yeah. So we've pitched it to a lot of places to be, but we're waiting to hear back.
Okay, so you're just going through those rounds.
Yeah.
What else do you want to do? Because I mean, we talked about in the beginning. There's how many channels and non-Smosh channels just like that have the GMM name? There's the food one.
There's Good Mythical Morning, Good Mythical More, and then Mythical Kitchen launched at the top of the year. So that has 2 videos. The podcast is starting to come out that's just for their kitchen channel, and we're basically not on that.
Sure, yeah.
And then there's Ear Biscuits podcast, which, this is the type of stuff we talk about. So check it out.
And then and then the vlog that we just was with the rekindling of our old channel, but which we'll get to in a second. But what do we want to do?
We want to do everything we're doing plus tell more stories.
Yeah, I think
because I was going to ask. That's kind of the main
storytelling
thing. Is the why, the growth.
Well, and I also think that we got into this whole thing from the very beginning because we wanted to tell stories, and of course, because we're super practical and we sort of adapted to our environment, we ended up doing the kind of content that works on the platform, that is, easily financed, and you can pump a lot of it out. And what we sort of indirectly stumbled upon in doing that is finding out that people actually wanted to connect not just with what we created, but actually a little bit more with just who we are. And the interesting thing that's happened is, as we've actually been disclosed even more and now recently disclosed like basically everything, the level of connection is kind of at an all-time high. But the question that we're trying to answer right now is, how do you take that, what you've seen people connect with in terms of just like the lives that we've lived in our friendship, and then how do you translate that into the types of media,
into art,
that have been the most compelling personally to us, right? It's like, I understand that Good Mythical Morning has connected with a lot of people, but I also understand the disposable nature of it, right? It's like, I missed the episode where you guys gave each other wedgies with a giant machine. It's like, your life is not going to be less enriched because you missed that episode. I think people buy into the whole experience, but in the way that you think about a piece of art, a novel, a movie, even a television show that can kind of just suspend your disbelief and kind of connect with your heart in a way that we want to do that. And I think actually now that we've kind of gotten our story out there, maybe that's one of the reasons that we haven't been able to do that yet. And maybe this will be the beginning of kind of, but there's so many hoops to jump through.
Who knows?
You know. So in the meantime, we just keep doing the stuff that we know we can do, like start a vlog channel.
But the vlog, I don't want us to work on anything together if our friendship is not genuine. And I think we got to a point where we were having discussions of, over the past couple of years, it was like, okay, our friendship is based on our business, and it's healthy, but long term, there's pitfalls associated with that. And that was really what led to the vlogs. That was the first reason. So it wasn't, we think they'll work on YouTube. It was, we can carve out time to actually just be friends. And I think we can film it in a way that then we can share it with people. Second to that. So that's where the vlog idea came from. And then third, it was like, plus it's working, and it works. It's working on the platform. So, and then the business ideas start to become a part of it. But the heart and soul of that decision to do vlogs was to cultivate our friendship.
Okay, because do you feel like you weren't getting as much time anymore?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we, it's kind of a double-edged sword because in one sense, having again, we use the analogy of a married couple all the time because we're a lot like a married couple in that a lot of times people get together because of some initial connection, and then you develop things together, usually children, and then those children often become the main reason that you're together. And then when they leave, you're like, why are we together? And I think in a lot of ways, what we create in our company is our child. And so we have this sort of like tenacious commitment to that, which implies a commitment to each other and actually does facilitate. We're with each other all the time. We share an office, except in the new little creative house that we're renting, we have separate offices, which is good and healthy. But I think that the idea that we started realizing that, we're kind of just functioning as business partners most of the time. And I also think that going back to Bowie's Creek and doing we did a little mini documentary that kind of made the connection between our hometown and then the town in the book, The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek. Kind of like open this idea up to be like, this is kind of just, we're not really trying real hard to perform and be funny. We're kind of just like, hey, watch us do this thing, and if you care about it, you'll come along for the ride. But then we just started realizing that it was a way to sort of force us to be like, hey, let's do something that we would never, ever decide to do right now, given our schedule. Like, hey, let's go to the Frisbee golf course and play with tortillas. It's like, that's a fun thing to do as a couple of 40-something-year-olds.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of a fun internet video. So you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Do you think it's one of those things, because the vlog is now on top of all these other things, do you feel like if it's one of those things where it starts to feel forced for you personally, that you feel comfortable just killing it?
Yeah, for sure. Because it's not like GMM. It's not this thing that so many people depend on. Like, we literally make the videos and then we have one person edit them. And
that's why they're not lifestyle vlogs too, technically, because we know the pitfalls associated with that.
What do you mean?
You don't know the pitfalls associated with lifestyle vlogs?
Lifestyle vlog? Oh.
I just mean in terms of like relationships. If you're putting your all of your like the inner workings of your relationship out there.
Like a constant, like a everyday kind of thing.
We would never do that.
But I can't. I vlogged earlier on, and it's the one, it's the one thing I can't take. Like, tell me I'm an idiot for my opinion on whatever in politics, but
yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be in my emotions all the time.
Right. So that's why we keep that. People get on us for calling them vlogs because they're like, they're not technically video logs of your life. You guys are doing one thing, and we're like, yeah, that's what it's going to be. But if one of these projects gets picked up, the television show goes. I mean, we're already working probably more than we should. If another project comes onto our laps, and we can't find a way to naturally, in a positive way for us personally, work the vlogs into that, then we'll just stop.
Yeah. Last business question. Who gets the credit for deciding to scoop up Smosh?
Neither of us.
Neither of us.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I think that the initial conversation that we had was just when we talked to Ian was what I'll give us credit for is that we were like, they said they needed a place to shoot their videos. We've got a facility. We've got a soundstage that's not being used. Let's just talk to Ian. But at the time, we weren't thinking acquisition. It wasn't until our COO, who knows more about these things, was like, I think there might actually be an opportunity here to help them, but also do what we've been discussing all last year, which is how do we make this not just about the two of us? And so we've been talking about all kinds of different business models for sort of expanding what we were doing and helping other digital creators, but none of it involved just outright acquisition. But it was just, it was destiny. The stars aligned, and exactly what we were trying to do and what they needed lined up perfectly, and it's been great.
That's great. Thank you, Defy Media.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question. I always ask everyone that comes on, what's the best piece of advice someone's ever given you, or what's a piece of advice you'd throw out for someone, whether it be business or personal?
A wise man once said, "Just yourself be if weird as you." It was me. That's yours, right?
Nope. I mean,
you got it from me.
That's for you, right?
Yeah, I gave it to myself.
Okay. I'll take it, and I'll give you what I think is the best advice I ever heard. In Steve Martin's book, Born Standing Up, which is a great book, he talks about how he wishes he could go back to himself in the early days of SNL when he was just getting going, and his career was sort of, actually before SNL, just in his stand-up days, before they were just beginning to catch, and he was selling out arenas, and he was so anxious, and he was so completely just in emotional turmoil all the time because he felt something amazing happening, and all he worried about was whether or not he could hold on to it. And he's like, I wish I could go back and say, it's going to be okay. So
sounds kind of like you're saying, just yourself be if weird as you.
Not exactly. It's simpler than that. It's going to be okay.
It's not as catchy, I don't think.
Thank you, Rhett and Link.
Thanks for having us.
Can we pause for 1 second?
Yeah.
Sorry, for the past 10 minutes, I've had to be so bad. Do you guys need a water break or anything?
You don't have a thing? We have a thing under our table, and we just go.
We just been going the entire time.
Yeah. I could go, but I'm not going to go.
So we got three battles.
All right.
Oh, my knee.
Well, if I'm going to time out.
Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture.
From the TV show Brum. I used that yesterday, don't care. Let's go with a different one. Let's go with Y-Bird from Playdays. That wasn't very smooth. Anyway, coming up today, we're going to talk to you about Adam Cole losing his goddamn mind, dropping F-bombs, assaulting producers, trashing equipment after storming out of an interview. After that, I'm going to tell you the real reason Sammy Guevara returns to AEW television this week per Tony Khan. He's been on the phone. And after all of that, Seth Rollins has declared the empty arena era a golden era That's pro wrestling.
Plus, it's finally been announced that SummerSlam will not be taking place at a venue. 3 major injuries coming off the back of AEW Dynamite, and Cody announces his retirement. Well, sort of. This is the news.
And hey, we're not even going to talk about the ratings this week, so you can all calm the hell down. Anyway, let's kick things off. Let's talk about this Adam Cole thing. So if you were online last night, if you were paying any attention to Twitter or whatever, you'd have probably seen this come up. I mean, how could you miss it? It's kind of nuts. So many people atted me about this overnight. We could not talk about it on the news, even though it is almost certainly a worked shoot if you kind of watch it and see how it unfolds and look at Pat McAfee's reaction on social media. You know, they're working. They're working. Either way, it's a lot of fun. So, Adam Cole, former NXT champion Adam Cole, was on the Pat McAfee show. And he lost his bloody mind. He went mental. So basically, Cole blew up when McAfee stated that Cole had surrounded himself with talented people in the Undisputed Era to achieve success. McAfee called this very smart and everything else. Now, Cole, the character, took this as Pat saying, well, the only reason you're successful is because you have these people around you and you cheat and all this stuff, and that wasn't what McAfee meant, but Cole said he was being a total dick. He shot on McAfee's career in the National Hand Egg League. Obviously, McAfee said...
That's right, me. Did it all by myself.
No, don't believe that. We've watched the takeovers, Adam. The Undisputed Era is the main reason why you've succeeded. But by the way, smart. That's good business. Hey, that's business, baby. That's very smart. Well, and especially for you, because, you know, you're kind of small.
Oh, we're going to go with the size thing now.
Fuck you, Pat! Seriously, I'm sick of your shit. I come the whole way here, take time away from my family to come to do your stupid fucking show. And you're gonna continue to disrespect me. Don't touch me.
Whoa!
Fuck you, Pat. Fuck you.
No, fuck you. Get out of here.
Shit.
You all right? What the fuck is wrong with that guy? I mean, a lot happened here very quickly. Was I being condescending to him?
No, complimenting him.
I didn't think so either. I thought I was just pointing out the facts. Have we ever been that disrespected in our own studio before? No. No. That's why I haven't had him on the show, though, by the way.
Smart.
Because you don't know what this guy. You have no idea what this guy.
Fucking loose cannon.
I mean, we're having a good conversation. We're up and running, and boom, all of a sudden, he's right here. Fuck me, fuck you. This pushes Ty, who's got colitis. And we even talk about that, and then he storms off. What's he doing now? Breaking shit out in the office? Thursday, July 23rd. I have no idea how we get out. Like, what am I going to... Am I going to go fight this guy out here? Do you think he's just sitting... He's Billy Tubes and him and my dad just hanging out right now? What are we doing? That's a show. Hey, watch along tonight. Yankees and Nationals. Tony Foch throwing out the opening pitch. We'll have special guests. Be a friend, tell a friend, say, hey, come watch the MLB primetime Yankees and Nationals game with Pat McAfee, AJ Hawk, the boys, special guests, and also tell them that Adam Cole's a fucking asshole. That was terrible. Yeah. Now we got to go figure this out. Are we going to?
Yeah.
Are we going to fight somebody? That's the show.
That's right, me. Did it all by myself.
No, don't believe that. We've watched the takeovers, Adam. The Undisputed Era is the main reason why you've succeeded. But by the way, smart. That's good business. Hey, that's business, baby. That's very smart. Well, and especially for you, because, you know, you're kind of small.
Oh, we're going to go with the size thing now.
Fuck you, Pat. Seriously, I'm sick of your shit. I come the whole way here, take time away from my family to come to do your stupid fucking show. And you're gonna continue to disrespect me. Don't touch me.
Whoa!
Fuck you, Pat. Fuck you.
No, fuck you. Get out of here.
Shit.
You all right? What the fuck is wrong with that guy? I mean, a lot happened here very quickly.
said, well, I was the punter of the decade, just kicking the ball or whatever. And McAfee clarified, no, I'm not, I'm not saying that the only reason you're successful is because of Undisputed. It was just the main reason, blah, blah, blah. Cole blew up again. He said he was the longest reigning, I almost said XFL, NXT champion ever. It was all on his own. He did it all his own doing. McAfee chimed in and said, well, I mean, we watched the takeovers. You had people interfere. You had distractions, whatever else. But that's smart. That's fine. It's cool. It's cool, man. It's cool. To this, Cole just flipped out totally. McAfee, insulted his height as well because lol. Cole flipped out. He smashed a microphone, gave it the old LB supper. He got up and he said, F you, Pat. I took time away from my family to do your effing stupid show, you effing B. He shoved a producer, multiple FUs here and there, effing and jeffing all over the place. You piece of S. He stomped out. There was a big furore, a big kerfuffle, shenanigans all over the place. There was a bunch of stuff going on Twitter after it as well, but yeah, Pat McAfee being a little worker. Did you catch this, Adam? What did you think of it?
I've got to say, I absolutely loved this. Yeah, it's just the way it builds. It's 2 minutes that is just chef's kiss when it comes to, like you say, work shoots. It's the bit where he's wound up, and Adam Cole said, look, NXT champion, longest reigning ever of, in history. And Pat McAfee goes, hey, good, hey, I'm not having a go. Smart. And I mean, considering the size of you, that's really good. Yeah. And Adam Cole just goes, oh, we're doing the whole size thing, are we? And then just goes to it. I'm like, go on, Adam, chin him. Yes, you are all welcome to use the phrase that I believe I coined. I don't think anyone else has ever used it before. It's a work. Of course it's a work. But we enjoy. I don't really know what it's a work for. Like, what, we're going to get McAfee versus Cole at SummerSlam? But regardless, if this is something to keep, let's say, Cole in the conversation until maybe he moves to the main roster, or Raw and SmackDown, I hate calling it the main roster. Maybe he moves to Raw and SmackDown immediately after SummerSlam, who knows? But either way, if you haven't seen it, I guarantee it will brighten up your Friday if you watch that.
Yeah, it's just good theatre, isn't it? It's fun. I love this stuff.
Speaking of SummerSlam, it is not going to be taking place inside a venue. I know what you're thinking. Surely this was the news about 2 months ago. No, it's only just been confirmed by WWE that it will not be taking place in an arena, despite, the ongoing global bastard and the fact that that's insane if we try to put it on. WWE released a statement yesterday saying, in coordination with our local partners, government officials and TD Garden, WWE SummerSlam and related events will no longer take place in Boston. Refunds are available. We're grateful to the city of Boston for their long-standing partnership and look forward to holding WWE events at TD Garden in the future. And then pushes the fact it's obviously going to be streaming on the WWE Network on August 23rd, Sunday, August 23rd, the day after TakeOver XXX. And information regarding a new location for the event is forthcoming. It's probably going to be the Performance Center, as with everything else, Andy.
Yeah, we all knew this was coming. I mean, the mayor of Boston was pretty insistent on, well, probably not going to be possible here, brothers, but WWE held off on it for quite a while. They've made the official announcement now, even though we all knew we're probably going to end up with an empty arena show. Stephanie McMahon recently said that she thinks fans will be back sooner rather than later. I don't know about that one. It's a tough situation. You're going to see a gradual unraveling, I think. You're going to see what we've seen in New Japan, where they have 30% of the arena only, not full capacity. You'll probably see drips and drabs before everyone else is back through. But, no great surprises here, man. This thing is not getting better. Graphs are going like this all over the place. It's not so much a second wave as it's more of just a constant wave that goes up and down and all over the goddamn place. So, yeah, man, it's all dependent on how the world quells this thing, and we've not done a very good job so far, so let's see where we are in a few months, I think.
Basically, every WWE pay-per-view going forward until we properly sort this out is going to be stomping grounds. 30% capacity and a bit rubbish.
Yeah, exactly.
But, look, it's a real tough situation for everyone involved, because every single fan is desperate to either go to shows or to just see fans at the arena. But if we do this wrong, it's only going to make things worse. So, if we could, I would have fans back tomorrow. But you can't guarantee people's safety. Until we can do that, we have to maintain all the medical advice that we are being given, because temperature checks, etc., can only do so much, can't they?
Yeah, exactly. The tests are never 100% reliable. There's no perfect way to do things. You can try and do things the safest way possible, but it's never going to be 100% safe in the current environment. It's just be as safe as we possibly can, man. Let's not hurry people back in. Let's protect people's health and well-being and do the right thing. I know we're all desperate to hear that noise again and hear the roar of the crowd and all these things, but man, if you watch these New Japan shows, even, like, they're not allowed. I think there's some regulation in place stating that, hey, don't make too much noise because that might project stuff out, and it's just kind of like watching this sterile thing where there's the occasional ooh and like a little applause and stuff, and it's just, nah, let's wait, let's be patient.
It was weird. I watched Impact yesterday, as you should. It's a really good show, but it was surreal because it's being held in just a completely empty arena, unlike AEW and WWE, and it was just mad to see EC3 do a run-in or EY interrupt the world champion or whatever it may be, to just complete silence, to just the announcers popping off about it. But like we said, safety first, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Be safe. Look after yourself. Look after other people, more importantly. Well, as importantly. Everyone's important. Hey. Tony Khan. Let's talk Tony Khan. That's a weird transition. But Tony Khan, yeah, cool. Talked about ending Sammy Guevara's suspension. Sammy was back on TV this week. A lot of people talked about that. First time in 30 days. Suspended, of course, for awful jokes made towards... why did I bracket jokes there? It was obviously a joke. It was just a terrible, disgusting one that should never have been said. Made towards Sasha Banks 4 years ago when the podcast resurfaced. AEW didn't know about them. He was suspended. His pay was docked. He went to a Jacksonville women's group. And he had to undergo sensitivity training. So a lot of people were like, is 30 days enough? Has he learned his lesson? Well, Tony Khan spoke to Sports Illustrated about this. Why did he bring him back? All this stuff. Khan said, I meant when I said about reevaluating Sammy's status within the company based on his contract. Sammy needed to make a lot of strides in order to keep his job and make amends for stuff he shouldn't have said. None of us knew he said those things, and it's stuff that was years old, but that doesn't make it right. He then went on, stating that Guevara went through 4 weeks of sensitivity training. It was on matters of tolerance, gender, race relations, why people's words matter. He was apparently very contrite, that's a quote, during this period, and Khan believes he used the time to become a better person. In closing, he said that he brought Guevara back because he has shown that he is very sorry and that he can change, adding that he has turned a terrible comment into something positive. So, it's like we said yesterday, without kind of like really direct, sensitive knowledge of the matter, being around Sammy Guevara, we can't sit here and go, yeah, he's changed, it's fine, or no, he hasn't done enough time or whatever. It's something that's really hard to appraise, and Sammy obviously has to now demonstrate these behavioural changes going forward and make sure something like that never happens again. Tony Khan and AEW are obviously satisfied that he has. So that's why he was brought back to television. We can go back and forth on this. There was a lot of talk on this on Twitter yesterday. I had a lot of mentions about this. But it is what it is. He's back now. He's going to roll moving forward. I think the only thing that we can hope for is that Sammy has emerged from this a much better person, and yeah, never going to happen again, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like positive stuff coming from Tony Khan, but as you hit the nail on the head here, Andy, we have to wait and see how Sammy demonstrates that going forward. That's all we can really say. Like you say, there's no specific time that means you've definitely, served your time and learnt from your experience. Yeah. It's a case of learning, like you say, and moving forward from here.
For sure.
Let's talk a little bit about AEW's show on Wednesday, though, because there was a fantastic Falls Count Anywhere match. The bad news coming out of that is 3 of the 4 competitors have come out of that match injured. The Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer reports that there was a...
For sure.
Let's talk a little bit about AEW's show on Wednesday, though, because there was a fantastic Falls Count Anywhere match. The bad news coming out of that is 3 of the 4 competitors have come out of that match injured. The Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer reports that the Blade is probably the most banged up. You probably guess where this happened. He went for like a tope through the ropes, missed the books, and then also seemed to miss the table that appeared to be there to sort of break his fall. He was resting quite gingerly following that. And both Bucks are hurt as well, various bruises. Matt.
And look at Randy Orton slithering.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
And it's lower. It's up and Butcher size. And look at those imprints. It's just been nuts. And now Swears and Hardware. So Matt's fighting for his last shot. The top advantage for the Young Buck. Blade. So resilient. And to see where we're still waiting. Taking it here. Show or what after what we saw with Cody and the thumbtacks, and now this ball. To answer your question, Tony, yes. Wow, it's just been nuts. Matt's fighting for his life here. And now, the security ring. Look at those imprints. Whoa! Look from the top from that senior Blade. The Young Bucks back in the driver's seat. Nick Jackson with it. You sign your name to agree to fight in a falls count. They're as innovative and creative as any tag team I've ever been on. Butcher's size just too much for the Bucks to handle. Butcher didn't change suit. Every tattoo he's got on that old body of his will tell a different story. Blade he's got on that old body of his will tell a different story. Blade completely missed. Oh, but Butcher didn't miss. Is amazing. The Young Bucks are amazing. The fabulous. And Matt, you can see grasping at the. Matt taking out the Blade, the Young Bucks back in the driver's seat. Nick Jackson with an extraordinary leap of faith, if you will. Taking a hell of a chance, but you took a big chance when you signed your name to agree to fight in a Falls Count Anywhere environment. I've never ceased to be amazed by the things that the Bucks will do during the match. They're as innovative and creative as any tag team I've ever been around. That takes in a lot of tag teams. Yeah, they've changed tag team wrestling is what they've done. But, Butcher's size just too much for the Bucks to handle. Butcher didn't change suplexing. It still works. Butcher is just so solid and so tough and so durable. I bet you $100 if every tattoo he's got on that old body of his will tell a different story. He missed everything. Blade completely missed. Oh, but Butcher didn't miss with that one. And Matt, you can see grasping at those ribs of his. And his lower abdomen as well. It could be a variety of things that could have gone wrong there with a man that size, that much impact and momentum, driving me through a table. 273 pounds of the Butcher flying at your midsection. Butcher will always win that one as he returns Matt now to the ring. Actually in the ring for the first time, these two.
Now the Blade is still down after that incredible high-risk maneuver.
Matt Jackson escapes. And,
Boy, that echoed out to the 50-yard line of the stadium. Go Jags!
Butcher very unsteady on his feet, and Matt Jackson just muscles him to the corner. And Nick hits him with a rising knee strike. The enziguri, the right combination.
The innovation's amazing. With the Young Bucks, shoots ahead of Nelson. The lateral press. Referee got a 2 count out of it.
It's going to take a lot more to keep that big guy down, I can tell you that.
It just shows you how tough the Butcher is, too.
Yeah, and is that Metz bleeding from the nose here? From the mouth?
And now he steps over into the sharpshooter. But Nick Jackson taking advantage of this no disqualification situation. And Blade back to his feet, but in what condition?
Yeah, look at that. He's still favoring the small of his back there, lower back.
But Nick Jackson taking advantage of this no disqualification situation. And Blade back to his feet, but in what condition?
Yeah, look at that. He's still favoring the small of his back there, lower back.
Blade, a veteran, and a tough son of a gun, no doubt about that.
Hanging Nick out to try over the top rope. He's got Matt in his sights. The clothesline takes him over the top to the rampway.
Well, this would be a huge win for Butcher and the Blade.
Oh, yeah, it would. Also, JR, think about this. It would be a huge opportunity for either team to advance in the rankings and to get a shot at the World Tag Team Champions, Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page.
Butcher and Blade setting Matt up on the ramp. Oh, the powerbomb neckbreaker combination.
Those combo moves are always so dangerous, especially now when they're up on the staging area here that has no get to them.
If you just tuned in, this is a Falls Count Anywhere match. You can't be disqualified. You cannot be counted out. And the match obviously does not have to end in the ring. Falls Count Anywhere means just that.
More plunder from tables. That's giving me now the Bucks an opening here.
Nick and Butcher pairing off, and jawbreakers there. Rocks the big man.
2 tables looking like they're going to come in play here momentarily. Very physical matchup. Everything tonight has been intense. I think coming off the fight for the Baldwin, the intensity level has gone up like the goddamn humidity here.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody has really ratcheted up a bit. A lot, as a matter of fact.
Butcher and Blade fighting back, coming back, and continuing to punish the Young Bucks here.
This is crazy.
Not a bad, this is pretty good assignment for a referee. You can't really screw this up.
Oh, the Bucks is getting Butcher and Blade a meeting of the minds.
Blade is probably the most banged up. You probably guess where this happened. He went for like a tope through the ropes, missed the books, and then also seemed to miss the table that appeared to be there to sort of break his fall. He was resting quite gingerly following that. And both Bucks are hurt as well. Various bruises. Matt has done his elbow after an elbow drop. I assume that was the elbow drop from the finish when he was jumping off one of the tunnels. Nick reportedly is shaken up from a swanton bomb. Again, his elbow after his head up. You probably guess where this happened. He went for like a tope through the ropes, missed the books, and then also seemed to miss the table that appeared to be there to sort of break his fall. He was resting quite gingerly following that. And both Bucks are hurt as well. Various bruises. Matt has done his elbow after an elbow drop. I assume that was the elbow drop from the finish when he was jumping off one of the tunnels. Nick reportedly is shaken up from a swanton bomb. Again, I assume that was the finish between the two of them coming off the tunnels through the table with the Butcher and the Blade on them. But that's pure speculation from my part. let's just hope they get well soon, because that was a spectacular match. And AEW's tag team division, if you no doubt saw that tweet yesterday listing all the teams in it, is stacked at the moment.
Yeah, sounds like a rough night at the office for these dudes. Not a massive surprise, I guess. I mean, not to undermine the performers and the safety measures they take, but it was a high-risk match. There was lots of weapons, lots of dives, lots of, yeah, like you said, they're jumping off the goddamn entrance tunnels and crazy stuff. It was a really good match. These people put their bodies on the line for our entertainment every single week. You've got to take a step back and appreciate that every now and then. It's not on us to tell people what to do with their bodies. It's not up to us to sit here and go, hey, you shouldn't have done all those crazy moves. It's up to them. You know, we're just people sitting here in some peanut gallery thousands of miles away. So here's hoping they make a speedy recovery. The Young Bucks are very important to AEW. I love the Butcher and the Blade. I like mid-carders more than I like main eventers most time, and the Butcher and the Blade are one of my favorite acts in AEW. They're not perfect, but they're just so metal. It's hard for me not to get into them.
Yeah, great.
And the Butcher plays in Every Time I Die as well, so it's like, how could they not be the most metal act in wrestling? Let's talk Seth the Chef Rollins. He's probably into metal, I don't know. Parkway Drive, he likes them. He has hit Twitter to call this a golden era of professional wrestling. Here's what he tweeted. From coast to coast and sea to sea, cool. I don't know if there's ever been this much incredible wrestling going on at one time. Taking nothing away from past generations, they inspired and paved the way, but we're damn sure keeping up and then some. Hashtag iron sharpens iron, hashtag the golden age. Interesting timing on this. A lot of companies are still shut down and a lot of companies aren't producing maybe their best work. However, I kind of appreciate the Monday Night Messiah just spreading a little positivity, because he's not always been like that on Twitter, so fair play. I sense you disagree.
I'm torn on this one. Look, at the end of the day, he's kind of right. If everything went back to normal right now, he's right. It's 100% the best time to be a wrestling fan in quite some time. Not only have you got WWE in terms of Raw and SmackDown, but also NXT doing great stuff. AEW has obviously really raised the bar for everyone. And let's not forget some of the other promotions. NWA, Impact Wrestling. Like, prior to all this going belly up because of the ongoing global bastard or having to completely change, there's so much competition out there. It's rare that we've seen it. Obviously, shame about the whole British independent scene, etc. But yeah, I'm inclined to agree with him. We were talking about this beforehand, and it's like he used to be a complete, I think the technical term is knobhead on Twitter, and now he's almost gone too far the other way. But like you say, I'm not going to have too much to go because it's a nice sentiment, and we should all be nicer to each other, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Especially at the moment when there's so much piling down on us from all angles outside of wrestling. It's way important now to just not be dickheads. So don't do that.
Should we move on to our final story here, Baldy?
Let's do it, Ginge.
Cody Rhodes. Sorry, I'm not allowed to say the second half of his name. Cody is retiring. Well, sort of. Like we just sort of spring that on you at the end. There we go, Cody. Thanks for all the stuff, mate.
Bye.
No, he's going to be retiring in 5 years. He has announced. He did an interview with PW Insider, basically talking about what he wants to do in his remaining time in the sport, saying, "I'm only going to be doing this for 5 more years, and for the next 5 years." I mean, I kind of took that from the first half of that sentence, if I'm honest, Cody. I didn't think 5 more years in 20 years was going to be the end of that sentence. But anyway, I really want to carve out that bell-to-bell aspect of what I was able to do. I've always been very confident in myself in the ring, and I try not to be overly confident, but we're dealing with different athletes now, and we're drawing from all walks of life in terms of the wrestling world. I'm kind of happy. It's very rare that you hear wrestlers just sort of go, right, that's the definitive endpoint, that's what I'm heading towards. And Cody is doing sensational stuff in AEW, particularly with that TNT Championship.
Yeah, you've got to admire wrestlers who are able to kind of go out on their own terms and set a clear plan and kind of not grind their bodies and minds and souls and spirits to dust by this really relentless sport. But, you know, we're gonna quote the Terry Funk rule because that applies to every single pro wrestler on the planet. So I have a lot of respect for Cody's approach to pro wrestling, and I love the idea that he's not just gonna wrestle until he's 60 or whatever and maybe risk his legacy and whatnot. So fair play to him, doing some really cool stuff with the TNT title at the moment, giving guys like Eddie Kingston a shot on national TV, Sonny Kiss stepping up, Mark Quinn, Jungle Boy, all these people coming out of these matches looking better than they went in. It's good stuff. He's a net he's a massive net positive for the business as a whole.
Yeah, he's like you say, he's elevated all those guys he's been working with. He's got a great wrestling mind, and yeah, it'll be exciting to see after those 5 years, once he fully dedicates that to doing more stuff backstage, how AEW transforms. Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions at WhatCultureWWE. Of course, you want to get in touch with us. First question today comes from Arsh, who says, ignoring the fact that WWE doesn't believe in long-term booking, who do you think will have to be the one to beat Karrion Kross in the future? I think the Demon. He will seem unbeatable, especially if he kills Lee. They've booked Karrion Kross perfectly in NXT, haven't they, Andy?
Yeah, they've handled him really well. They've done a really good job of kind of setting him up as this force straight away. The presentation has been very effective in that regard. And, you know, leveling up against Dominik Dijakovic this week in terms of quality of opponent was a really good shout. Yeah, I mean, the Demon is perfect for that role, isn't he? Like, you could have Karrion Kross go undefeated for X amount of time. I'd do it for like over a year, man. Screw it, let's go. Go all in on things like this. Don't just do it for a couple of months and then go, meh. And then the Demon's the guy. It's so perfect because you lose nothing if you lose. I mean, he loses something if he loses in a minute. But if he's beaten by this invincible demigod within Finn Balor, then there's no shame in that whatsoever. You've nailed it. I have nothing, no alternative to offer. It's perfect.
Just had a thought. What happens if Survivor Series you have Drew McIntyre, Karrion Kross, and the Bloody Fiend in a triple threat?
Jesus, Fenton, who's going to win that? How do you pick that? It's Brock Lesnar in there as well. Why not?
Brock Lesnar, special guest referee. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the Demon's the right choice, and I think having him just tear through everyone else, people almost being unwilling to win a number one contenders match because they know they've got to face Karrion Kross. I think it's a sensational piece of booking they've been doing since Karrion Kross arrived, and yeah, I wouldn't have him lose to Keith Lee. I think Keith Lee's going to hold the title effectively for about 7 weeks by the time Takeover Kiss rolls around. But even so, that's the way it goes. You can't have babyface world champions in NXT, it seems.
No, they don't last. They're transitional. Good luck to Keith Lee against Karrion Kross. That's going to be a hell of a challenge. And Sub-Zero's grandmother is there as well, remember?
Exactly.
So.
Look at it this way, Keith. You're blatantly going to move to the main roster afterwards and make loads of money.
Exactly.
So it's fine. Second question today comes from, but what about the Attitude Era on Twitter, who says, I know it's not in real danger of going out of business, but considering the blatant counter-programming and rushed storylines, and in the past 2 weeks getting drubbed in the ratings, is NXT turning into Nitro, not AEW?
Well, it's an interesting observation. I don't necessarily think so, because to me the defining characteristics of Nitro, like as a product, were just the bollocks and the Vince Russo nonsense plaguing everything. Now, there is some crap on NXT, don't get me wrong. I hate that Shotzi Blackheart runs people over in a stupid toy tank. The Robert Stone thing is...
Don't you badmouth the Robert Stone brand. I'm a fully paid up member.
Opinion redacted. There's a lot of silly stuff on that show, but I don't think there's enough plaguing it across the board. I think the problem with NXT is that it doesn't do a good enough job of capturing the key demographic. So they've got to find programming that satisfies that. In terms of Nitro, maybe as far as the ratings trend go, but in terms of the product, I don't think there are many similarities there. I don't think it's as exciting as it used to be, don't get me wrong, but it's not just like total garbage, you know?
No. I think it's a yes or no answer, this. Yes, obviously, counter-programming and just doing stuff to try and snatch a rating is a little bit ridiculous. And I completely agree with what Alvarez said a while back, where he reminded himself of Nitro by looking at NXT, because they just... I think, actually, no, maybe it wasn't Alvarez, maybe it was Cornette. It was Jim Cornette, I do apologise. Jim Cornette was saying about how he used to watch Nitro burn through all their big matches, and then after a couple of years, it's like, right, well, what have we got to actually advertise and push forward now? But I do think that this week you saw NXT turn a corner a little bit. I think they at least attempted to draw a line. Now they have a focus, you know, sort of back to normal, back to takeovers on a Big Four weekend. You know, it was a bit convoluted. Obviously, have Keith Lee just dropped that NXT North American Championship, but it's made for a fascinating build and some great matches towards takeover. I think NXT should just be, and this is really patronising as I say it, just be happy with second place for the time being. Like, you're going to beat AEW when it comes to like Survivor Series time, but in the meantime, just make a good weekly show that around a minimum of 650,000 people watch, because those don't care about whether or not you pop a rating or beat AEW, and no one should really care. We should just make 2 good wrestling shows because there's enough to go round.
Yeah.
Like you said, but what about the Attitude Era? They're not going out of business. They're going to be absolutely fine. Remember the fact that they are primarily, or they should have been, a developmental brand, and just focus on what you're doing.
Yeah, I
chase the dream, not the competition.
I kind of wish they'd done that in the first place with this whole counter-programming thing. Like, I like a lot of stuff about and we're going way long here today, but who gives a crap? It's Friday. I like a lot of stuff about the Wednesday Night Wars, but at the end of the day, it was WWE's decision to go against AEW, not the other way around. And the thing is, if you threw NXT on like a Thursday night, right? Last week's Wrestling Observer, I believe Dave Meltzer said something like 900,000 people are watching these shows on DVR, and you've got to imagine a huge amount of those are because they have to pick and choose. These shows could conceivably be doing like around 1 million viewers a week if they were on different evenings, and high numbers in the demo and stuff, and concentrating on themselves and making the best product possible, and the whole wrestling scene would be healthier as a result of this. But no, WWE decided, hey, we're going to run head to head, and we're going to do 600 and they're going to do 700. We're going to split everything. That is the thing I hate the most about all of this, man. There are so much fun stuff about going head-to-head in this, but in terms of overall viewership, man, you didn't have to do that, Vince, but you did, and here we are.
Just you wait till AEW Dark comes to TV and we get main event featuring Brock Lesnar. So
the Thursday Night Wars, both shows doing 100K.
Final question today comes from local lads, Dan Brotherton, who says, who do you think will be the one to take the TNT title off Cody? I reckon it'll be Matt Cardona, love from Newcastle.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in Matt Cardona doing that. Cody was speaking about him yesterday again, so I think there's a very good chance. I still think it's going to be MJF. I think it's going to be a while from now, but MJF is getting really pissy at the moment. Like on on Dynamite this week when he was squashing Griff Garrison, he was making such a big thing about being undefeated and all this, and he's always talking about, hey, well, I'm like top of the rankings, and how does Cody have a belt? I beat him and all this stuff. So I think they're planting seeds for a rematch there. I think it'll be MJF. I think it'll be about 3 or 4 months from now, Phil, because the open challenges are chef's kiss.
Absolutely. MJF's an obvious one. Darby Allin would be my other suggestion. A final sort of crowning glory of him finally being able to defeat Cody for a title could be very interesting. But yeah, gun to my head, I'd have to go with MJF right now. Let's move on to today's and finally. And I'm not sure if you've seen this, Andy. Someone, Sekiro Arts, last night tweeted Lance Archer regarding Simon Miller, basically warning some of Lance's potential victims. To which Lance Archer responded, haha, who dis warning my victims? Then Sekiro Arts explained it was our very own Simon Miller, to which Lance Archer responded with a gift threat, basically. Lance Archer attacking Colt Cabana. Simon Miller responded, please don't throw me through the roof, to which Lance Archer said, if it's a low ceiling, well... So, good luck, Simon Miller. In fact, no, we're not going to stand for this. Lance Archer, I hope you're watching this. Lance Archer, if you think you can just come and get Simon Miller, well, you got another thing coming. If you want to get your hands on Simon Miller, you got to go through Andy Murray first.
Absolutely bloody nuts. No. I will not fight Lance Archer. I would not fight anyone. I'm a pacifist, but especially not a man who yeets people through roofs on national television. I'm
Lance
scared
Archer,
of
I'm
Lance.
the human version of Scrappy Doo, and you and I can go. Let us know your thoughts on that. Please don't tell Lance Archer I said that. On Twitter at WhatCultureWWA. You can follow both of us. Andy, where can people get you, particularly Lance Archer?
Lance Archer can get me at Adam Wilborn.
Lance Archer can get me at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Help, I've been thrown through a ceiling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to What Culture Wrestling, wherever you get your podcast from. The Daily Wrestling Podcast, including, of course, Wrestle Culture with the hashtag Good Quiz today. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Sorry, Phil.
20. Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture.
And I'm Andy Murray from What Culture. And coming up today, we're going to tell you about the latest ex-WWE star to debut in Impact Wrestling. I've got a backstage update on Natalya, Kairi Sane, and Shayna Baszler. And on top of that, we're going to talk a little bit about Cody's mystery opponent for tonight's AEW Dynamite.
Plus, a former NXT star debuted in AEW last night. How did Randy Orton and Big Show do in the ratings? Crap. Really crap. And 2 former indie promotions may be coming to the WWE Network. Just a quick caveat as well, if you can hear any noise during this news video, I'm doing the most middle-class thing in the world ever and having my loft converted today. Fancy. This is the news.
Look forward to some builder's language peppering this video throughout. Anyway, let's kick things off by talking about the latest ex-WWE guy to cross over into Impact Wrestling. So, Slammiversary was a busy one in that regard. Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, Eric Young, EC3, Heath. They were all there. They were all showing up. It was a night of surprises, apart from Gallows and Anderson, obviously. That was announced beforehand. This continued on last night's Impact show, which by all accounts, haven't checked it out myself yet, but by all accounts was a tremendous little episode of TV. Looking forward to seeing that after work. Kurt Hawkins.
Good afternoon, my friends. With the lights, I can already see a few signs of Halloween Horror Nights here. And the first sign. Thank you for. I know. Yeah, the tribute store. That's Halloween Horror. Good to see you. Hashtag. I have a question for you. Do you have any news regarding Halloween Horror Nights? I know. Yeah, the tribute store. That's right. Thank you for another clue. I appreciate that. Hopefully I'll see you very soon. And here we are, the second clue regarding Halloween Horror Nights, the tribute store. Every year, well, the past 2 or 3 years, Universal has had, oh, someone just came out. Anyway, the past 2 or 3 years, Universal has had a super mega store right here with all of your Halloween Horror Nights merchandise from all the houses, the scare zones. And look, it's already lighting up red. Let me zoom in so you guys can see a little bit close. Yeah, look at that. I think this kind of looks like Beetlejuice. Kind of, at least the archway here. Oh man, this makes me super excited. Bianca just told me she thinks it kind of looks like a shipwreck. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. We had to take cover because it started pouring outside. We are about to ride the Mummy. It is currently a straight walk-on.
Silence! With your souls, I shall rule for all eternity.
Would any of you like to enjoy bacon and cheese crickets or sour cream and onion crickets? And just like that, it stopped raining. One of the really big rumors regarding Halloween Horror Nights 30, the icon this year will be Beetlejuice, which I am very excited about. I don't know if you guys remember or not, but Beetlejuice used to be right here before Fast and the Furious. I am very hopeful that Beetlejuice will be coming this year. That's what everyone's been talking about. We'll see if it happens. We are passing Fisherman's Wharf right now, and usually there's a really cool scare zone here every year. I am not seeing any signs of a scare zone as of right now. Another house that I'm super excited for this year is The Haunting of Hill House. That is my favorite horror series to ever come out. Very excited for that this year. I'm looking at the newest speculation map, and it says we're going to be getting a Universal Monsters house with The Bride, music by Billie Eilish. That should be good. Universal Monsters last year was amazing. Beetlejuice, Pumpkin Original, Bedtime Stories, The Haunting of Hill House, which I'm very excited for. Currently, Fear Factor Live is not going on due to this is a universal rest area where you can remove your mask and hang out. But the question is, will we be getting Academy of Villains this year? I think so, but I was really hoping for Bill and Ted's to return this year because they have a new movie coming out. Wait a minute, look at this. We have Scrim, and usually that is the sign that tells us the times for Academy of Villains. I wanted to come in here to the U-Rest area because we can see one of the tents back here for Halloween Horror Nights. I know it's kind of hard to see through these trees, but that white tent right here, yep, that's a house. Every year, Universal will have 2 really amazing houses back here by Man in Black. Also, every year, we usually have chainsaw clowns running through this area. No. Bianca said that's my favorite. Absolutely not. I am terrified of chainsaws. Do you have any new information about Halloween Horror Nights this year? They haven't announced anything, but I know you know something. Also, I really enjoy watching you on Disney Plus now. Universal is doing something very similar to Disney with the mobile ordering. Same thing as Disney. Point your camera, order, and go pick up your food. I'm pretty sure if Halloween Horror Nights is officially happening this year, we should start seeing these drink and food tents start popping up. And also, I can already taste and smell those pizza fries at Halloween Horror Nights. Passing E.T., we also have 2 or 3 really good houses back in this direction, but not seeing much of anything at this time. But let's go try to ride E.T.
Hold! Hold it right there! Whoa!
Got him. Bottom of the hill.
All right, that was a fun ride on E.T. Back to the Halloween Horror Nights. Not seeing anything passing this scare zone every year. Sometimes they have lanterns and all kinds of stuff hanging in these trees. We can usually tell when they're setting up for Horror Nights because they usually have speakers and props and stages here. Not seeing much of anything right now, but it is still very early. Every year, there's always a really amazing scare zone along Hollywood Boulevard. It is raining right now.